Hey, welcome to Tuesday. And by the way, it is November. November is a great month. A lot of things go on in November. It's a time of planning, looking forward. Thanksgiving comes at the end of the month. Who couldn't love Thanksgiving? Families getting together. Anyway, and food and special events. It's a great time of the year. I think maybe the weather moderates a whole lot. Hopefully, have nice, decent weather throughout, a little more moisture and rain. Anyway, but you didn't come for a weather report. Just glad to be here on this November day and spend a few minutes with you. And I'm glad that you took a moment to join me. And like I say from time to time, welcome to my little world. Come on in. Spend a little time with me. Be here for a moment. Anyway, there's something I've been thinking about. Sometimes I check on the day, and you get those calendar things that say what happened on this day in history, and it kind of struck me when I was looking at today's when an event took place in 1937. 1937. By the way, I wasn't around in 1937, just in case you didn't know. Anyway, in 1937, there was an airplane flight. November the 2nd, 1937, there was an airplane flight. It wasn't a long one, but it was a notable one. It was the flight of the Hughes H-4 Hercules, better known as the Spruce Goose. It's kind of interesting that Howard Hughes decided to build this airplane. Largely built out of wood, its wingspan was about 100 yards in width. Huge plane. It was basically a seaplane to take off from the water. And I think a lot of people thought he couldn't do it. You can't build a plane like that. You can't build it out of wood. You can't power it enough. It's going to be too heavy. It's structurally unsound and all that. And Howard Hughes was known for his eccentricities. That's a lot easier to think than it is to say. Anyway, he was an eccentric man. Hey, that worked. And kind of if you told him he couldn't do it, he might be the kind who would just do it anyway. So he built the plane, brought it to Long Beach, California. And on November the 2nd, they fired up the engines and the plane began to cruise across the waters and ultimately lifted from the sea. It flew. It flew up to 70 feet in the air, circled around for just a short flight, landed back in the water. And he proved it. I could do it, and it flew. But you know what? It never flew again. He pulled it into a safe place, into a climate-controlled situation. Ultimately, it's made its way to Oregon, where it's in a museum and kept there. And you can go and see it today. But the Spruce Goose made only one flight. It cost at the time of its building $23 million. From what I've been able to gather, that's in the neighborhood of $200 million today. Maybe not a huge amount in consideration of what it costs to build a plane today, but you consider $23 million for a plane that flew for just a very few minutes, a few moments, to 70 feet in the air and came down again. Never put into commercial use, never put into transport, never to fly great distances, but just simply that, and never to fly again. Hard to imagine, isn't it? You think, why in the world would someone do something like that? Why in the world would somebody build a plane like that and never really fly the plane? It's kind of like going and taking swimming lessons and then just standing on the side of the water, the pool or the shore, and never getting out into the water. It's like teaching a baby to talk and then putting a tape over his mouth, although sometimes we probably like to. Oh, wait, I didn't say that out loud, did I? But, we work on things in order to accomplish something down the road. We build towards it, and then we move from it. We do things. because we want to get somewhere, we want to do something, not to put them in a museum, not to hide it away, not to just say, well, we did it for a minute, that's all there is to it, it's done. There's something strange about that and something not quite right. Now, Howard Hughes could do whatever he wanted to, I guess. But something about that is just not quite right. But it brings to mind one of the statements that Paul makes as he writes to some of the Christians that he had contacted. Some of them he had taught. Some of them he had converted himself. As he wrote in the first verse of Galatians chapter 6, sixth verse of Galatians chapter 1, I'll get it straight. Sixth verse of Galatians chapter 1, he said, I marvel that you were turning away so soon from him who called you in the grace of Christ to a different gospel. Why build a spruce goose you're never going to fly? Why in the world would you put yourself into learning of Christ, dedicating yourself to Christ, becoming a Christian, only to say, okay, that's enough, and walk away? It's an odd thing, isn't it? I think about those commercials that came on television some time back. But the young man made his way through school, graduated from college, said, what are you going to do now? I said, well, I think I'm going to retire. Wait a minute, you've spent all this time getting all this education, now you're ready to retire. Okay, that's it. Generally, we go through lessons, we prepare ourselves, we work towards an end to accomplish something down the road. And I think that's what Paul is getting at here. When you learn Christ and you put yourself into it, why in the world would you move away from it? Why in the world would you let it slide and get away from it? I know there are a lot of things that we do in life that come to an end. Often children that play in a band no longer pick up instruments down the road. You wonder, well, you lose interest in it, I guess, and you just don't really want to do that anymore, don't have the option, you're not in a band and so forth, and maybe you can find some justification for that. But why the direction of a life? Why direct your life and make a dedication, devotion to it, and then walk away from it? Doesn't make much sense. Doesn't make any more sense than building a huge airplane and never really putting it into flight. Every now and then I meet people say, oh yes, I used to go to church. Oh yes, I used to practice this and that. Oh yes. And I think, what got in your way? What stopped you? What stopped you from moving forward? What stopped you from taking what you knew and going forward? So here's my thought today. There's no doubt that we practice things, we get into things, and then we leave them behind because maybe that's not the direction we want to go. But the things that you find that you can do, the things that you find you can devote yourself to, those are the things that we don't want to leave behind. You don't become a husband or a wife just to walk away from it and say, well, that was a nice ceremony. See you again sometime. You don't bring a baby into the world and say, well, that was a nice birth. Hope you have a good life. No, that's not the way it works. It's a beginning. And from the beginning, we launch into the greater adventures that follow down the road. I've often thought about old Abraham, kind of the father of faith in a way. Abraham heard the voice of God, and he followed. And isn't it great that the writer of the book of Hebrews later said, you know, by faith he went out not knowing where he was going, just following the lead. He started, and he kept it, and he followed it. No spruce goose here, just a following. No turning back here, just a following. Look at your life and see the things that have the real value, the things that you put yourself into, and make a determination. Make a determination today. The things that I've done, I will not turn away from. The things that have value, the things that I've dedicated myself to, I will not just drop them aside. But the things that have real value for life and determination, a good determination, I will follow, and I will follow all the way. I think we'll find ourselves happier, fuller, maybe even a little richer. Not so much with money, maybe, but dedicated to the things to which we commit ourselves. That's a good thought, I think. Something our country, our generation, our times really need, isn't it? Hey, I'm glad you're with me. That's what our faith needs as well. I'm glad you're with me today, sharing these moments together. I hope it encourages you. Just thinking about it helps me, and knowing that you're with me, that makes me feel good too. All right, then, we'll share some more things a little further down the road, so I look forward to that. Glad you're with me today, and we'll see you later.